my pack, my tribe. Welcome to Halloween After Dark. Actually, I should say welcome to Mysteries and Mayhem, because technically this is episode 2 of Mysteries and Mayhem tonight. But before I get into all that, couple of announcements to make. This show is now on Spotify. That's right, folks. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Howling After Dark. There you go. Also, I'd like to announce that I now have a Patreon site. That's patreon.com/ghostwolf paranormal. So if you'd like to be a patron of the show and help us keep running, that would be great, because I am kind of hoping to do this for a living. So there you go. All right. So on to tonight's show. Couple weird stories. Let me get to the first one. Okay, so I'm not trying to bag on anybody's religion. I never try to do that. What the heck? But I just heard about this today, and there's actually a tie-in to the whole format for Mysteries and Mayhem, because we're not necessarily concentrating on the paranormal with this show in particular, but we are looking at all these dark mysteries, all these mysterious disappearances, true crime, etc., etc. So the headline says, Akron pastor under investigation after authorities find 89 cremated bodies at his church. Now, months after he was arrested for acting as an unlicensed funeral director, an Ohio pastor is now facing a multitude of additional charges after authorities discovered 89 cremated remains in his abandoned church. According to the Daily Mail, a woman calling herself an urban explorer tipped authorities off after she discovered several boxes and bags containing cremated remains on the first floor of the Great Faith Missionary Baptist Church. Investigators from the Ohio Bureau of Investigations opened their investigation in the matter on January 11th. According to a search warrant affidavit, the woman said that she noticed some of the remains were labeled with dates going back to 2010. There's significant health issues, significant dignity issues, an OBI representative told News 5 Cleveland. This is not just a regulatory issue, and some of the things we're seeing there are just not right. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this for a minute. Look, like I said, I'm not bagging on anybody's religions whatsoever, but we don't know what the motivations were here. It doesn't say in this article. We don't know if this pastor, Sean Harden, I believe, whatever his name is, doesn't matter. We don't know if this pastor was making money off of this deal. We can kind of assume that, but we don't know that. It could be he was just trying to help people in his community that couldn't afford a proper funeral. Okay. I don't know. Wasn't involved in the case. I wasn't there. I don't know the guy. I don't know his motivations or whatever. But regardless, what's very telling to me is a Ohio Bureau of Investigations agent saying that we are seeing things here that are just not right. That makes me think that maybe this was for profit, or maybe it was for satisfying some kind of sick urges. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the man, and I'm not trying to pass judgment on anybody, but just that part of that statement, like, gives me the creeps, to be honest. Because, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just soured on the whole Christianity thing. In fact, I will admit I am. I've had more than my share of bad experiences with the church. I've never been judged more harshly in my life than I have by people that go to church. That's all I'm going to say about that. But and I've also not met bigger hypocrites, and sorry to say. Anyways, neither here nor there. Moving on to the next story. This is something I've been interested in for quite a while. Years, in fact. 13 mysterious... tongue-tied. 13 mysterious disappearances in national parks. In the United States National Park System alone, there are more than 84 million acres. Think about that for a minute. 84 million acres. That's a lot. Of preserved woods, deserts, mountains, and other wilderness. So it's no surprise that in the past 100 years, there have been a number of cases of hikers going missing. Many of those who vanished were young children and inexperienced hikers, but some were healthy and seasoned outdoors people. But there's more to these disappearances than just kids wandering off or hikers becoming disoriented. So this ties into some urban legend stuff. Let's see. There's a gentleman by the name of David Paulides who has written a series of books called Missing 411, and all he does in these is he explores these very mysterious and quite frankly strange disappearances. It don't make sense. Some of which happened while people were in full view of other people. So let's start with the first case. Bessie and Glenn Hyde in 1928. Bessie and Glenn Hyde were honeymooning in northern Arizona at the Grand Canyon when they vanished. They were traveling down the Colorado River by boat in October of 1928 and planned to boat through the Grand Canyon. Bessie would have been the first woman ever to do so successfully, by the way. Glenn had run through tough rivers before, but Bessie was a boating newbie. The couple ran across other boaters a few weeks before their disappearance. He said they got the feeling that Bessie wanted to turn back, but Glenn was pushing her on. If they completed the trip successfully, they could go on a paid lecture tour. So this trip was more than just fun. There was money at stake. Cut to several months later, the Hyde's boat was discovered that winter seemingly... The Hyde's boat was discovered that winter seemingly undisturbed. It was upright and full of supplies, but the couple was gone. There are many theories about what happened to the Hydes. Did they disembark and try a too difficult side hike? Did they have an argument that turned violent? Or were they abducted? There are conflicting reports about what happened to the Hydes and more than one Bessie Hyde sighting in the years that followed. Next one's creepy. Case number 12, Alfred Bowhearts, 1938. 4-year-old Alfred Bowhearts was the first recorded drowning in Colorado's Rocky Mountain National Park, though whether Bowhearts actually drowned is controversial. He was camping in the park with his family over the 4th of July weekend when he disappeared near the Roaring and Fall rivers. Bowhearts had gone with his dad to bathe in the river, and from there he decided to join two family friends at a spot about 500 feet upstream, where he and his father entered the river, or upstream of where he and his father entered the river. When everyone returned to camp, they realized that Bowhearts was missing. A search began, immediately expanding to more than 100 civilian Conservation Corps members within 45 minutes, but there was barely any sign of Bowhearts anywhere. A day after he disappeared, a couple hiking about 6 miles away from Bowhearts' campsite reported seeing a boy who looked like Alfred sitting in an area called the Devil's Nest. By the time authorities arrived, though, the boy was gone. The search went on for 10 days and included 150 men plus bloodhounds. The size of the search party had dwindled to a dozen by the end of the 8th day. Park rangers chalked his disappearance up to drowning. They never found his body. Okay, this couple, let me kind of go over this again. So, a couple hiking about 6 miles away from Bowhearts' campsite reported seeing a boy who looked like Alfred sitting in an area called the Devil's Nest. So he was alive, sitting there. Okay, the Devil's Nest, first off, for those that don't know, it's not easy to get there. And we're not talking 6 miles in like a straight line. What this means is he would have essentially, from where he was, he would have had to have crossed the Colorado River on his own, got to the other side of the river, and then hiked around these snaking trails. So realistically, that 6 miles would be on land, going over land would have been more like 18 to 20. And he was 4 years old. Something ain't right there. So if they saw him sitting 6 miles away, really 18 to 20 miles away, and he was alive, where did he go? Because in the Devil's Nest, there's not really a lot of options. You either go back the way you came, or you've got to go up this little freaking goat trail and climb up the cliff wall to get to the trail on top of you to head back towards civilization, which is practically impossible for a boy of 4. or you go down into the water. But either way, he would have appeared somewhere. So it doesn't make any sense. A, it doesn't make any sense how he ended up there, and B, it doesn't make any sense how they didn't find him with 150 men plus bloodhounds. Okay, let me explain something to you, okay? In a human being, the gland responsible for our sense of smell is about the size of a postage stamp. Okay? In your average dog, regardless of the breed, the gland responsible for their sense of smell runs the length of their body. Their nose is like a supercomputer. And a bloodhound, their gland runs the length of their body and then back again. So you're telling me that a 4-year-old boy is able to evade essentially a search party that is bigger and more prepared and with better dogs, more dogs even, than a escaped convict would have being hunted down by U.S. Marshals. You're telling me that that boy just disappeared and, oh, we're just going to say it's a drowning, even though there's no body. Nah, the only thing that makes sense is that kid was taken. By who or what is the question. All right. Number 11, Catherine Van Alst, 1946. 8-year-old Catherine Van Alst disappeared from Devil's Den State Park near Arkansas's Ozark National Forest, where she and her family were camping. Van Alst apparently was playing with her brothers when she wandered off and got lost and couldn't find her way back. What makes her disappearance remarkable is that when she was found after 6 days wandering the woods, she was eerily calm. University of Arkansas student Porter Chadwick was part of the search party that found Van Alst. He told the Pittsburgh Press that when he found her, she walked stoically out of a cave and just said, "Here I am." She had survived on berries and spent nights sleeping in caves. Many other hikers have gotten lost in that part of the Ozarks and not been as lucky as Van Alst. Paula Weldon, 1946. There's an area in Green Mountain National Forest near Glastonbury Mountain in Vermont's Long Trail that believers in the paranormal call the Bennington Triangle. The area got this name because of a handful of mysterious disappearances which occurred between 1945 and 1950. Although many more have been recorded over the years, paranormal author Joseph A. Citro coined the term because of the supposedly supernatural circumstances surrounding these vanishings. Paula Weldon was the second person to go missing in that area of Green Mountain National Forest during this period. 18-year-old Weldon was a college student who set out on the Long Trail in December of 1946. She was dressed for walking and not a long hike. Wearing jeans, a coat, and sneakers, her attire implied that she planned to return before dark, when temperatures were supposed to dip below freezing. Weldon told her roommate that she was taking a long walk, and she never returned. Vanished. By the way, the Bennington Triangle is also famous for one other thing. A lot of Bigfoot sightings. Not saying they're related. In fact, in my heart of hearts, I don't think they are. But just an interesting coincidence. Anyway, several people spotted her as she hitchhiked her way to the trail and walked to the trailhead. When Weldon didn't come back by dark, her roommate let the school know, and the search began. Classes were suspended so students could help with the search. The process was disorganized at first until Weldon's father called in favors from police in 2 surrounding states. Unfortunately, the search didn't pan out, and frustrated family and friends had their own theories about what happened to her. Did Weldon run off with a boyfriend? Was she abducted? Did she commit suicide? Or did she die of exposure because of her inappropriate attire? No one has discovered her body, so her disappearance remains a mystery. There's a rumor that this area of the Long Trail is home to a creature called the Bennington Monster. Could this Sasquatch-like animal have something to do with the disappearance? One positive outcome of the case was that the lack of organization in the search for Paula Weldon led to the creation of the Vermont State Police, which was responsible for all wilderness search and rescue missions in the state. Larry Jeffrey, 1966, is number 9. 6-year-old Larry Jeffrey disappeared near the peak of 12,000-foot Mount Charleston in Humboldt-Toiyabe National Forest, just a short drive from Las Vegas. The search began immediately after the boy wandered away from his brothers, and within days the National Guard and a team of bloodhounds had joined the search. In a TV interview, David Paulides told reporter George Knapp that there were no predators afoot that day, and since the area they were in was pretty secluded, it's easy to rule out an abduction by car. This boy just walked into oblivion, Paulides said. When Jeffrey disappeared, he was wearing light clothing, and authorities were doubtful that he could survive the cold temperatures at night. Searchers found and lost the trail a few times, and they discovered evidence that the boy had been eating insects and foraged berries along the way. Overall, around 1,000 people searched for 16 days, but never found him. 1,000 people and National Guard and bloodhounds could not find this boy. Yeah. Number 8, Dennis Martin, 1969. 6-year-old Dennis Martin was on a camping trip near the Tennessee-North Carolina state line with his family in the summer of 1969. No Bryan Adams jokes, please. It was an unusual Father's Day tradition. All the men in the Martin family headed to Smoky Mountain National Park to camp and hike. Dennis and his brothers had planned a prank on the adults. They were going to hide separately in the bush and jump out on different sides of the campsite to scare them. It was a typical joke that should have ended with some startled shouts and then a lot of laughter. The laughter ended quickly, though, when they realized that Dennis was missing. Family, park rangers, and other hikers spread out to search for Dennis almost immediately, but he was nowhere to be found. That evening, there was heavy rainfall, which is bad news when you're trying to track a missing little boy. No shit. The search for Martin became the largest in National Park Service history. One of the people searching was Park Ranger Dwight McCarter, who had successfully tracked down hundreds of missing persons, including young children. McCarter was a seasoned tracker, and he was struck by the complete lack of any sort of tracks. Dennis seemed to have disappeared completely, leaving no trace at all. His disappearance is still a mystery. One possible lead that searchers didn't follow was a report from another family the evening that the boy went missing. The Key family allegedly heard a scream and saw a bear man, as they described it, with something slung over its shoulder that looked like it could be a small child. We'll never know whether this was related to Martin's disappearance, but one thing did come out of it. The realization that having so many volunteers might have meant some vital clues got trampled on. Nowadays, searchers involve less people, but they have more training. Yep. Uh, 1971, number 7, Douglas Leg. Douglas Leg and some of his family were heading out for a hike in the Adirondack Forest Preserves, Santanoni Preserve, when his uncle spotted poison ivy and told Leg to put on long pants to protect himself. The family's cabin was a short, straight shot from where they were, but 8-year-old Leg never returned. Unlike a lot of the kids who have gone missing in national parks, Leg was very familiar with these woods. His family owned the cabin where they were staying and described Leg as a mini woodsman because they all hiked there together so often. Leg's disappearance sparked one of the southern Adirondacks' largest search and rescue missions, with more than 600 people searching the woods, but like Martin, Leg left no trail. Unlike in the Martin case, though, rescuers used dogs in their search. Some accounts describe dogs following Leg scent over 30 miles trail through difficult terrain. How could a young child have traveled alone for such a distance? Some searchers reported seeing bear-like tracks near the site, while black bears do drag their prey to cover. Dragging someone 30 miles over difficult terrain seems unusual. The family became desperate and began suspecting each other and even their friends of abducting Leg, but the police were certain that the mini woodsman had simply gotten lost. He was never found. Number 6, John Devine, 1997. According to Pennsylvania Daily News, Olympic National Park in northern Washington state has a feature that's not as majestic as its mountain views. At least 4 hikers have mysteriously disappeared from the area in the past 25 years, one of whom was 73-year-old John Devine in 1997. Devine planned to hike into the park from Mount Baldy. The trail is a tough 24-mile, and though Devine was elderly, he was also an experienced long-distance hiker. Devine was camping with his friend Greg Balzer. They split up on the day that Devine went missing. Balzer went off to hunt while Devine took off on a day hike. The fruitless search for Devine lasted a full week until a rescue helicopter crash killed 3 people and injured 5 others. By that time, weather conditions had deteriorated, making the chances of finding Devine slim. Friends and family said that Devine wouldn't want to put people in danger on his behalf, and the search was called off. The search helicopter's crash is as mysterious as Devine's disappearance. Before takeoff, the pilot used a hand signal indicating that he was going to wait 5 minutes for conditions to improve before attempting it. A moment later, the helicopter departed vertically without warning and crashed into the side of the mountain. Number 5, David Gonzalez, 2004. At 8 a.m. on a July day in 2004, David Gonzalez asked his mother if he could have the car keys. There was a box of cookies in the car, and the 9-year-old wanted a treat. The car was only 50 yards away, and his mother watched him as he walked to the parking lot near their Big Bear Lake campsite in Northern California's San Bernardino National Forest. I know this place well. She turned her back for a second, and when she looked around again, Gonzalez was gone. His mother reported that she heard no sound at all when her back was turned, though she did see a beige truck speeding out of the campground around the time that her son went missing. Since there was no signs of abduction, authorities did not pursue that lead. Dumbasses. The cookies that Gonzalez went to get were still in his family's locked van, so he never made it to the car. Rescue teams in San Bernardino County scoured the woods for Gonzalez. They found no sign of struggle or of the boy. The search went on for 9 days, but rescuers never found him alive. Almost a year later, hikers stumbled upon the boy's remains about a mile from his family's campsite. Authorities initially chalked this up to a mountain lion attack, but how could a mountain lion have silently dragged a 9-year-old boy a mile without leaving any blood or signs of struggle? The autopsy determined that any marks made to the child's remains were done by scavenging animals. Okay, so this is what's bullshit. Sorry, gonna get off track here for just a second. A vehicle was seen speeding away from the scene right after the child disappeared, and the police make no connection there? Fucking really? What, do you want me to do your fucking job for you? Dumbasses. Sorry. Anyways. Number 4, Pradeep Swan, 2013. Pradeep Swan was a 25-year-old Canadian Army reservist who disappeared from Australia's Kosciuszko National Park, located in the southeastern state of New South Wales. Swan was studying abroad in Australia in May 2013 when he decided to take a 1,700-mile road trip from the Gold Coast to Melbourne. Swan rented a van, drove to the park's Charlotte Pass in the Snowy Mountains, and no one has seen him since. The search for Swan began when the rental company discovered that the van wasn't returned. Swan hadn't told anyone what route or side hikes he was planning, and the search may have started days or even a week after he went missing, since it was the rental company that first reported the disappearance. Searchers figured out his hike plans by looking at the search history on a laptop that he recovered from his van. Swan's family hired private searchers after Australian authorities called off their search after only 2 weeks. The investigators used tower data from Swan's phone and a trained dog to track his trail to a treacherous area called the Western Fall Wilderness. Just 1 day before his van was due back to the rental agency, Swan embarked on a difficult and time-consuming hike in snowy weather. Why would a trained military reservist make a choice like that? Despite a private search that went on for over a year, Swan's body has never been recovered. Number 3, Jacob Gray, 2017. The mystery of what exactly happened to 22-year-old Jacob Gray will likely never be solved. The athletic young man rode his mountain bike into a rainstorm in Olympic National Park in Washington in April of 2017 and was never seen alive again. His bike and gear were found on the side of a trail, but Gray was nowhere to be found. This kicked off a search largely championed by his father, Randy, who actually sold his house and closed his contracting business so that he could fully devote his time to searching for his son. Randy spent months doing that, all the while theorizing about what could have happened to his child. He considered hypothermia, accidental drowning, an accident, and so on. He also worried that burgeoning mental health issues had gotten the best of him. In August of the same year, he got the phone call that a group of researchers had found Jacob's remains and supplies higher on the mountain than anyone expected. The likely cause of death was hypothermia. Number 2, Sian Mclaughlin, 2021. Just last year. 27-year-old Irishman visiting Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming has been missing since June 2021. The last known sighting of Devine native Sian Swan Mclaughlin pinpoints him heading in the direction of Taggart Lake. This is located on an 8-mile trail that is very difficult in nature. When he didn't show up to work, he was reported missing. He held dual U.S.-Irish citizenship. His car was found nearby and kicked off a search that formally ended 2 weeks later. 45 helicopter searches and other high-tech tools have yet to reveal any information about his whereabouts. His family and the U.S. National Park Service have since put out a poster with a photo and details, as well as the hashtag #FindSean, to keep him top of everyone's minds in the area. The disappearance is extra puzzling, as his uncle described that particular trailhead as his favorite. Another hiker reported seeing Mclaughlin without a backpack, so it appeared that he had just gone out for a walk. Wow. Number 1, Gabby Petito, 2021. The disappearance of Gabby Petito made international headlines when her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, returned from their road trip all by himself. I would immediately suspect him. Just saying. The couple, who posted heavily about their travels on social media, had an ambitious schedule of coast-to-coast national park visits, although several fights between the pair were noticed by others along the way. Petito's family says that their last contact with the 22-year-old was at the end of August 2021. Laundrie arrived back home September 1st without Petito and refused to speak with police or her family. Yeah, that's not suspicious. He fucking did it. Her family reported her missing on September 11th.
Oh, wow.
After a lengthy lack of contact, in fact, they don't believe the last text they received from Petito was actually from her. Sadly, on September 19th, Petito's remains were found in Bridger Teton National Forest in Wyoming. The cause of death was determined to be strangulation. Laundrie disappeared on September 17th, and on October 20th, his skeletal remains were found inside the Carlton Reserve in Sarasota, Florida. As of press time, his cause of death is still unknown. Yeah, so obviously he did it, and then probably went to Florida and killed himself, is my guess. Or maybe, karma got him and he got eaten by an alligator. Either way, I'm good with it. Because, karma's a bitch. And you know what? If you're fighting that much with your girlfriend, just fucking break up, dumbass. Seriously, you're gonna ruin not only your entire life, but her entire life over what? Because you don't get along? Here's an idea. Why don't you grow a pair, act like a fucking man, break up with the girl, cut it off clean, and move the fuck on? Because here's the thing, fellas. Only an absolute pussy would ever lay a hand on a woman, number one. And number two, there's only one reason you are ever allowed to lay your hand on a woman, and that's if she kicks you right in the dick. Then you have my permission to knock her the fuck out. Alright. That's it for me. My pack, my tribe. Until next time. Peace out.